Hello everyone, welcome, I'm Robert, and it's that time of the year. We're nearing the deadline for submitting our top 20 solo games for this year's People's Choice Top 200 Games by One Player Guild. I've already submitted my top 20, which I'll discuss on a separate video. Today, I'm discussing my many honorable mentions. So many games.
So little time.
I'm surrounded here by piles of great games that I would have loved to squeeze into that top 20, but you know what they say.
There can be only
20. The list is in no particular order, but as I get closer towards the end of the list, I'll emphasize how tough some of those games were not to include. Also, make sure to let me know in the comment section if you were one of the folks that submitted your votes, if there's any games that you wish you could have squeezed into your top 20 that didn't make it. So without further ado, let's get started. First, we have Under Falling Skies. This is a dice placement game that was originally a print and play and then got picked up by a publisher. And this is a lovely production, by the way, component-wise, it's awesome. And it's a from the ground up solo game, so no multiplayer game with a solo mode added. And it's one of the most beloved solo board games out there, and if you're interested in this hobby and you have never tried this game, make sure to do yourself a favor and try it. There's lots of game to be played here. It even comes with a campaign aspect if you want to go that route, but if you just want to do the one-off sessions, it also caters towards that. I don't tend to reach for this that often just because I lean more towards other games. That's why it doesn't rank so high for me, but I have to make sure I give this game its due recognition. It's just a wonderful package and great components, great replayability with the different difficulty modes and the campaign aspect. So that's Under Falling Skies. Make sure you check it out if you haven't already. Next, we have Uwe Rosenberg's Nusfjord. And this was one of the first games that I bought since I started the hobby, and the only Euro that I revisit regularly. Euros are very underrepresented in my collection. I need to try other ones like Gaia Project, for example. Maybe that'll turn me into an Euro fanatic. But yeah, that's the reason why this doesn't rank higher for me. I don't tend to reach for Euros when I want to play a solo board game. But this one knocks it out of the park in a few aspects. First, it's pretty accessible. It's not super rules heavy, but it also offers a great puzzle. It has great replayability thanks to the fish decks. And it's just gorgeous. The way that it looks on the board, it sets up relatively quick. Every time I pull this out, I play 3 or 4 times in a row. So just great Euro game. If you're not sure for an Euro to pick for your solo board game collection, this is a great way to start as far as introductory. I still to this day played when I started the hobby back then. So that's Uwe Rosenberg's Nusfjord. Check it out. Moving on, we have Role Player. I discussed this game in my top 20 solo introductory board games. Check that out if you haven't. I'll leave you a link to that. Basically, this is a game where you're creating a D&D character, so it's a gamification of that. So you're gonna roll dice and try to get the best stats possible. You're gonna pick a character, an alignment, a class, and with the Monsters and Minions expansion, you're gonna fight monsters along the journey, and you're just trying to score the best you can at the end. So there's tons of replayability with this game from the different classes and races and other variables during setup. So I still play this regularly to this day, even though it's a game that's easy to if you're dipping your toes into this hobby, you can start with this game. So even though it's great for folks starting out, I still play this to this day. It's just so much fun, especially with the expansion. So yeah, as a role player, fantastic game to have as part of your solo library. Next, we have Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. So I did not like the original Terraforming Mars, basically because of the art. I'm a visual guy, so the board and the art really turned me off, so I just could not play it in physical form anyway, but I do play the app regularly. I enjoy the Terraforming Mars app. Now in physical form, I got Eric's Expedition, and basically this is a variation of Terraforming Mars that borrows a lot from Race for the Galaxy, another great game that I enjoy immensely. So I love that it kind of marries concepts from both, and I have played the heck out of this game. There's some expansions that came out recently. I have not tried any of them yet. I still just enjoy this base box as is. But yeah, great engine builder, one of my favorites, Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition. Alright, next we have Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. This is another engine builder, and it's just a lovely engine builder where it's your turn all the time. It might not be a from the ground up solo game. It is a multiplayer game with a solo mode, but it's just one of those games where there's no AI maintenance, which I love. It's just your turn the whole time, and it's just you puzzling with your tableau building and figuring out the best way to do resource conversion and getting the best score at the end. So there's lots of civilizations to try in this game, and you can buy expansions which add more civilizations. In this game has a little bit of a worker placement aspect. There's a little token that acts as a worker that gives you different actions, and also there's a mechanic where you conquer islands, which I just find really fun. And there's also lots, so the way that this works, there's solo scenarios, right? So there's a bunch of official ones, but there's also fan-made scenarios. This is a file that you can download that I made that you can find on Board Game Geek. I'll leave a link to that. So what I did was I compiled pretty much all of the fan-made scenarios that you can find. And this just increases the replayability like crazy. And these fan-made scenarios are really, really well designed. They're just so much fun. So this is a lovely engine builder, one of the best ones that I've tried. This is a iteration, by the way, of the 51st State engine building system that Ignacy created. I have tried 51st State and I did enjoy it. I did like this system way more, but there's folks that really heavily lean more towards the original 51st State. I do enjoy both, and you know, they have enough differences to warrant having both if you're interested in ever trying 51st State. I have not tried the original Imperial Settlers though, so I can't really speak much to that. But yeah, from 51st State and Empires of the North, I prefer this a lot more. But yeah, that's Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. Lovely engine builder. Next, we have another engine builder. This one's called It's a Wonderful World. Some folks have described this as a lighter version of Terraforming Mars, and I would agree. It has such a simple rule set. It's so easy to learn, but yet it offers something near to that Terraforming Mars experience. And it has better art than Terraforming Mars. However, even though the art is really well made, this game has like no theme. The theme completely falls flat. It seems to be like a pseudo civilization building theme, but that doesn't come across in the mechanics at all. And the art, although it's really well painted technically, the subject matter that is put on the art is just all over the place. So this is not a game that you buy for the theme, but it is great to play, I'll say that. And it is very minimalistic components-wise. There's a few types of tokens and colored cubes, big deck of cards, that's it. And a board, which is completely optional, by the way. You can even play without it once you learn it. But there's scenarios, and then there's just one-off bid your own score type games, which that's what I tend to do when I pull this game out. And I have not even touched the scenario, so there's a lot of this that I can still play. But it's an excellent game, and the reason why this game, I didn't really even look at it for the longest time, just because I look at the cover, I see the name, and it's like, what does that mean? It's a Wonderful World. What? Like, the theme is just so weird with this one. If there's, you know, the non-existent theme rather, but wonderful game nevertheless. Don't let this get sneak under your radar. It's a great game. Just forget about the theme and just try the game out, read about it. Just great engine builder. It's a Wonderful World. Great solo game to look after. Moving on, we have Sid Meier's Civilization: A New Dawn. So some folks have asked what the best solo civilization experience is, and in my opinion, this is the unequivocal best solo board game experience that you can get if you want a Civ experience. Now, I might not be the best person that is qualified to answer that, to be honest with you, because even though I've tried a couple other Civ games, but Here's the thing, right? I like the concept of a civilization game. However, when it comes to actually playing the video game, I just suck at it. I'm so bad at it. I typically end up in scenarios where I have archers going up against like tanks or riflemen. Like I'm just terrible at that game. The thing with 4X games on PC, which I've tried many, I've enjoyed Alpha Centauri, um, Master of Orion, and Civilization. Of course, I've tried many of them, but I end up sucking in like the mid to late game. Like there's so much to manage, like with the economy and how you after you expand after a certain point, like it just becomes unwildly. And I typically have a problem understanding the underlying mechanics that the PC game, like that the PC processes on the back end, right? That you don't get to see the I think it's the discrete mechanics is the correct term for that. But what happens is, because this is a board game version of a 4X game, they have to pare down on the complexity and the calculations and how much you have to manage, because if you're going to translate it to board game, there's a lot that you have to cut down. But this works for me. I love it, because now when you read the rulebook, you understand everything. So I have a much better understanding of it, and I do well in this game. And so that's one reason why I like this so much, right? Now, the problem here is that this game, and then also having to learn the solo mode, which they released that after notice that it says 2 to 4 players, but during the pandemic, they released a official solo mode that only supports the base game, and it's wonderful. It's so well made. It is a bit tough to learn, I'll say that. That's the biggest. Honestly, I haven't played this since I first played it 2 years ago, but it was such a wonderful experience because I finally played a Civilization game from beginning to end. I don't typically tend to. I've never finished a Civilization game on PC because I just suck. I just get trampled because I don't know what happens mid to late game. But here I finished it and I won. I did well because I'm able to understand it now that it's a bit cut down. Now, this game really shines. Where it really shines is when you add the expansion. The expansion just brings this game to a new level, all right? And now the other aspect of that, though, is that the expansion changes some rules, and it does add more rules, and it changes some of the old rules. And also the expansion is not officially supported solo, but there's a fantastic file that you can find on BoardGameGeek that allows you to play with the expansion solo, and it's just such a masterful job. It adapts it and it feels official. It's like the individual that made it, that worked on it, that person knocked it out of the park. It feels like an official add-on so that you can make the expansion work in solo. And this, folks, is one of the best solo board gaming experiences that I've had. But I just can't reach for it very often, and I haven't in like a couple of years because I dread relearning it. Like when you add the expansion and when you add the fan-made solo, learning it is a nightmare. Like you have to juggle like 4 different rule books: the base game rule book, the expansion rule book, and the official solo rules, and then the unofficial expansion solo rules. It's a nightmare to learn, but once I did, I enjoyed this so much. You have to at the very least try just the base game with the official solo rules. This is just such a wonderful Civilization experience. So that's Sid Meier's Civilization: A New Dawn. A wonderful solo game, but super tough to learn. Next, we have D-Day Dice. This was one of the first solo board games that I bought since I started the hobby, within the first 10 or so games that I bought, and I love it to this day. It's a pretty chill game for me, very easy to learn, and even though the subject matter is not the lightest, it's not the most chill thing, really. But for me, I just find this game pretty relaxing, just because it's easy to pick up and play, and it's a game that really shines with expansions. I heavily suggest that you don't buy this just for the base game, because I believe that the base game, if you just play with the bare minimum with the base game, it's really tough to win in this game. So basically, you're trying to reach. It's abstracted, but basically you have a map and you're rolling dice and you're trying to push your soldiers to the end of the beach, and you're gonna gather resources along the way, and you're gonna run into mines and machine gun fire. So it's pretty abstract the way that it represents all of that. But it's really cool. The theme does come across surprisingly well just for a board, some cards, and some dice. It really does a great job of letting the theme come across. The art and the graphic design is beautiful. And like I said, this game really shines with expansions. There's expansions that make the game easier and others that make it harder. So you can fine tune by adding and mixing and matching and removing or adding expansions. You can fine tune the difficulty to how you want it. And there's just so many maps and scenarios. It's crazy. If you get all the content for this game, there's a crazy amount of replayability. But this is one of my favorite dice rolling games. It's like a Yahtzee mechanic type game, but it just really uses those mechanics to the best of their ability. So D-Day Dice, second edition, one of my favorite solo board games. Next we have Grove, and this is one of the 3 games in the trilogy of games by Mark Tuck. So before this was Orchard, and I personally preferred Grove over Orchard, and now recently a game called Forage, the 3rd in the series, had a successful Kickstarter. And I really love both this and Orchard. I haven't tried Forage myself yet. I'll wait for a retail copy for that one, but I think these games do such a great job with a minimalistic amount of components. Just a handful of dice, a few cards, sets up in like seconds, and you're good to go. I love that they come in these tiny boxes with plastic cards. I'm a fan of plastic cards. Not a lot of games can do that. I understand why, but when I get a plastic card game, that's just I just eat it up. I just love it. But yeah, this series of games is just so good, and also a great way of introducing someone to the hobby. So I can't say enough good things about Orchard, Grove, and well, Forest probably. I don't see why I won't like it, but yeah, I'll get to that when I get the retail copy. But yeah, that's Mark Tuck's minimalistic games: Grove, Orchard, and Forest. Next, we have Palm Island, and this is a game that was also on my top 20 last year. Now, the reason why it's not on my top 20 this year is because there's another in-hand game that I tried that blew this out of the park. However, I do still play this, and I do take this with me on trips. So Palm Island and that other game that replaced it on the top 20 for me, which I'll reveal later when we get to that. These games are games that you play, in your hand, and I think this is just an accomplishment in design. Just the fact that it's just a handful of cards and you can take it anywhere with you. I love the puzzle that this offers. The replayability works because of the you shuffle the deck initially, and that just creates different puzzles every time. It has a very simple rule set. It has plastic cards, at least the deluxe version does. So yeah, just incredible little game. Palm Island. So if you haven't tried it, check it out. Moving on, we have A Gentle Rain. This is another small box game that's on the lighter side, and I think this is one of the most perfect games that I have ever played. I could not find anything wrong with it. It's very fairly priced. It's small. It's beautifully designed graphically. It's easy to learn. The rulebook was perfect in my opinion. And it's just a perfect little game in my opinion. Sadly, this was out of print for a while, but it looks like finally this got picked up by a publisher. But at the same time, it seems that they're going to redesign it, and although they haven't shown any final product yet out of the redesign work that they're doing, I thought this was already perfect. I'm kind of sad that they're changing it. Well, more reason for me to treasure my original copy. But yeah, it's just one of the most beautiful little solo board games that you could ever get. It's very relaxing, and I tend to reach for heavier games, as I've mentioned a couple of times before. But for there's just perfect times to play this, and when when you have those days where you don't wanna read some heavy rule set. Or if you don't want to shoot or beat monsters in a game and you just want a simple, relaxing game, this does a great job. And I also discussed this on my top 20 solo introductory games. I think this is also a great little gift or little a gateway game for you to introduce the solo board gaming hobby to someone. But yeah, really happy that this is at least getting reprinted finally. We'll see what the final product looks like. a gentle rain. And speaking of relaxing games, we now move on to Cascadia. I think this game does such a fantastic job of offering a nice puzzle with just very minimal rules and very few types of components. So you have tiles, and then you have tokens with different colored tokens with different animals. That pretty much is it. It's crazy what this does with that. And this has a lot of replayability by virtue of the many combinations of tiles that you could possibly get, and also from the scoring conditions and how you can combine them. It's nuts. This offers such a good experience thanks to that variety of tiles and scenarios and scoring, and such a light rule set, and also such a soothing and nice nature theme with beautiful blues and greens. A very good game. I played it for the first time this year, and I do come back to it occasionally if I don't feel like pulling out a super heavy game. And I know that there's an expansion coming out. We'll see how much that adds to this, but for now I've really enjoyed this, and I've not even begun to scratch the tip of the content on this because of the many scenarios. But I've enjoyed this immensely every time I play it, and what an accomplishment this does with just the few types of components and the simple rule set. Just so good. Cascadia, awesome game. Next we have Warfighter. So this is a system that's been around for a while, and they offer many base game boxes in different theaters of war. So you have modern, there's World War II, there's also the Pacific Theater box, there's also fantasy and futuristic boxes. So these are the two that I have, and the reason why I got this is, well, first I heard that it was a great solo game, which it is, and also that I wanted some kind of action game that, like a shooter, basically a shooter game on board game form, and this is the closest thing that I found to that. I grew up playing Counter-Strike and also Call of Duty, love those game franchises, and this does scratch that itch. It's very interesting. You outfit a squad, you give them weapon loadouts, and there's different soldiers to choose from with different characteristics. And then you have missions with clear objectives. You move around a map. There's like a map movement. There's a time limit. So you're against the clock. There's bad guys that pop out. There's shooting, cover, mechanics. There's a big deck of cards where you draw from, and you do actions through those cards that you draw. So it is a very interesting system. The reason why I don't rank it higher is because just learning it is such a pain. I did not have, learning it, just not a nice experience. The rulebook doesn't do it any favors. If it was if the rulebook was a bit better made, or if I was more accustomed to picking this game up and playing it, I would rank it higher. The reason why, I just don't visit it that often because I dread learning the rules again. But this is an incredible system, and this could be a lifestyle game if you want it, folks. Like, there's a million expansions for this, and then there's the different settings to choose from. So this is a fantastic system. You can also, if you want it, just if you want to occasionally play this in rotation with other games, just get one of the core boxes. There's plenty of content just in the core boxes. But yeah, that's Warfighter. Fantastic game, solo board game system. Next, we have Mr. President, the American Presidency. I made a hour-plus long video on this, so I'm gonna link it there if you want to hear my extended thoughts on this. But this game definitely made an impression, and there's been lots of people that have shared how this is one of their favorite solo board games of all time. This came out this year, game that has been in development for a while. And it is a pretty incredible design, although I have to say it's definitely not for everybody. Although it does a great job of teaching you the game with a booklet turn by turn. It is a very big scale game with lots of levers and moving pieces. It's definitely not as accessible as a lot of the other games that I have mentioned and that I will mention in this list. But regardless, it's a very impressive design. Just not for everybody, but do read about it, especially if you already like GMT games. I love that it is a from the ground up solo game, not a multiplayer game with a solo mode. And if the subject matter of American politics interests you at all, that already might be a thing that will make you lean towards this game. But yeah, the American Presidency definitely is one hell of a game. Lots of upkeep, lots of a stupid amount of tokens to organize and to learn what they all do. But it does an incredible job of simulating the act of governing as president of the United States. And again, check out the video that I linked there if you wanna if you want to hear my extended thoughts on it. So that's Mr. President, the American Presidency. Moving on, we have Hoplomachus Remastered. I made a full-length review of this. I'll leave you a link if you're interested. I tried this for the first time this year, bought a retail copy, and it was my entry into the Hoplomachus franchise. If you get this game, please get the premium chips. I really don't like the chips that they include, the lighter chips. But yeah, get the weight chips with this game. And if you want a chip theory game, this is one hell of a way to get introduced to their library. It is a super complete package with lots of replayability and one of the best rule books that I have ever read. Just masterclass rule book. Really polished, and so many different factions to try and game modes. Just a fantastic package. And if you want to hear my extended thoughts, just check out the review. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I mention this beautiful title, Hoplomachus Remastered. One hell of a title by Chip Theory Games. Alright, so now we're going to start talking about some deck building games honorable mentions for the next few titles. And I'm going to start with Star Wars, the deck building game. Now, this is not a conventionally soloable game. This is a game that has many solo variants out there, and as one user put it that I read when reading about the game, we're spoiled from all the different solo variants that there are of the game, of which one I made one. You may know about that already if you're a subscriber of mine. I made the Leaders variant for this game, and I just genuinely enjoyed and played the heck out of this game this year, not counting all the play testing I did for the variant. Now, I will say this game is in dire need of an expansion. I really want more card variety, but at the very least, I recommend that you get it on sale. There's a lot of gameplay and fun to be had with this game, with the solo variants. I'll leave you a link to the solo variant that I made. I made a video tutorial if you don't want to learn it by reading the rules. But I tried keeping the variant as simple as possible. It's just you just have to print 2 pages, front and back board, and then 1 page of front and back for rules. That's it. And there's lots of other solo variants out there that you can try. There's even a campaign solo variant. So there's a lot here if you want to play solo. And I'm just salivating for Fantasy Flight Games to release an expansion for this. I really want more cards. And assuming that they don't release their own solo mode, you can bet that I'll update my variant to make the expansion content compatible if possible. But yeah, love my time with this game this year. I still pull it out occasionally. That's Star Wars, the deck building game. Can't wait for more expansions. Alright, next we have more deck builders, and this time I'm gonna cheat a bit and put 2 in 1. Alright, so we have here Aeon's End and Astro Knights. So this system of deck building is fantastic. The Aeon's End has been around for a while, and they have many iterations and expansions. There's lots of folks that revere this series and they own everything for it. I only own the first cycle, the complete first cycle, and I own the second cycle at some point. But I traded it because I have not even begun to scratch the surface of just the first cycle. I keep coming back, every time that I want to play Aeon's End, I just keep pulling out the first base box because I have not gone through that content yet. However, when I saw Astro Knights and I read the changes that they made to it, and the different setting and how they iterated on the system, I went ahead and got this, and I'm really happy to own both. I like the differences between both, not just theme and setting wise, but also mechanically. I think it's perfectly fine to there's room to have both in your collection. And if you want something a bit snappier and faster, Astro Knights offers that. And if you prefer the sci-fi setting, that's Astro Knights works as well. So there's a million expansions for this. Like I said, I've only really played the base game, but this could this could be a game where if you want to own everything and you want to be a completionist, there's tons of content out there. I only play controlling 2 characters. I know that you can technically play only controlling 1 character, but I like mixing and matching characters and finding out synergies and teams that work better against certain bosses. One reason this doesn't rank higher for me, to be honest, is just because I'm not a fan of the setup in this game. It takes a bit to set it up, like coming up with the market and all of that and separating the cards at the end. Not a fan of that part, but it's just a fantastic solo game, and it does rank higher consistently in the People's Choice list for a good reason. If you have not played Aeon's End, make sure that research about it. Maybe try one of the 2 boxes. You can't go wrong with either. Just a fantastic series of games. Aeon's End and the new Astro Knights. Next, we have Apex Theropod deck building game. I think this is one of the best solo deck building games out there. And I love the dinosaur theme and the illustrations. They're really, really good. And this is it borrows a lot from the Legendary system. And I was not a fan of one game that lots of people enjoy, in this case, the Legendary Marvel. I made a video on why I ended up trading it. I'll leave a link to that there if you're interested. But basically, I just didn't enjoy Legendary Marvel because although you can technically play it solo, I just don't think that it offers a very engaging solo experience. I think that game would probably work better multiplayer. But here, on the other hand, you have a game that is primarily solo. It's the reverse. Here, this is a primarily solo game that does happen to have a multiplayer mode. But that you don't buy this game for multiplayer. This game you buy it for the solo mode, and it uses a lot of the Legendary mechanics, and it just works much better solo, in my opinion. So I have enjoyed this immensely. There's so much variety, and like I said, I love the illustrations. So yeah, one of the best solo deck building games out there. And Apex, I recommend it 100%, especially if you like some of the things that the Legendary system does, but it didn't end up engaging you that much. Make sure you give Apex Theropod a try. Alright, and next we have Shadowrun Crossfire. I played this a couple of years ago for like 3 weeks straight. I have not revisited again, but I could very easily itch to play this game. It's such a good deck builder, and a couple things that this does great. One, the cyberpunk theme. This is the only cyberpunk themed game in my collection, and for that reason I'm never gonna leave it until maybe if I find a much better solo cyberpunk themed game. But regardless of just it doing that well, the cyberpunk theme part, it has a legacy light element that I love. Basically, it's a very, very tough deck builder where at the end of every game your characters gain karma points, right? But they just they're just these precious nuggets that you barely get 1 or 2 if you perform extremely well, like karma points, and you use those karma points to improve your character stats and add better perks to your character so that you can do better in missions, and then try more difficult scenarios and missions that reward higher amounts of karma points. And it's just, even though it's such a light legacy element that this game comes with, it's just addicting. You just want to keep racking up those karma points so that you can improve your characters. And at the beginning, it's going to be extremely brutal. Just winning a mission and surviving. You're barely going to scratch by. And you do have to control 2 characters. I think there's technically a way of playing just with 1 character, but I only played controlling 2, and I think you'll do better. I mean, the game's already tough as it is. I think you probably want to play with 2 characters. Another thing that this game does extremely well, I've heard some people mention, and I have to agree, the way that it offers the puzzles, right? So you're managing your 2 characters' hands, and you're going to have a row of enemies to, threats keep coming out every turn. And the way that you have to puzzle with your cards in your hand and what's on the table, it has the puzzle is very reminiscent of Mage Knight in a very interesting way. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but basically what I'm trying to say is that this offers a pseudo Mage Knight experience with a fraction of the amount of setup and the rule set. And again, that's what a lot of people say, and I agree with it. If you play it, and if you're someone that loves Mage Knight and you play it and you think that we're crazy, fair enough. But I do agree. The puzzle in this game, the way that you match symbols and you try to get the best out of your hand for the situation, it does that. And it does give me like a bit of a Mage Knight feel. It's very interesting how it does that. And if you sadly this is out. I think this is out of print. I haven't checked on that in a while. Maybe this is due for a reprint, but. Make sure that if you get this, that you get the High Caliber Ops expansion. It might be a bit tough these days to find the High Caliber Ops expansion, but I think one of the coolest things about that expansion is that it adds dual color cards, and it just adds more replayability, more baddies, and I think it even adds more characters and scenarios. But yeah, just amazing system, great cyberpunk game, great deck builder, great puzzle. And sets up fast, just fantastic. Just talking about it, actually, I think when I'm done making this video, I'm probably gonna pull this out and just play a few games, because I'm just having really fun memories for when I played this a couple of years ago. I played nothing but this for like 3 weeks. It was fantastic. Just love this game. And I hope that if it's out of print and if it's having printing issues, I hope that it gets reprinted and soon, and that it's available for people. Just a fantastic game. Alright, we're done with deck building games, and now we move on to Tristan Hall's Gloom of Kilforth, a fantasy quest game. And this is a lovely title. It's a card-driven adventuring game, and it's beautifully illustrated. And it does a great job of telling cool stories and offering different settings. With the way that the setup works, you create a map completely made of cards, a land that you explore. And you can sneak, you can attack, you can try to talk your way out of trouble. So there's different routes, and at the end of the adventure, you have to defeat an ancient. And along the way, you're gonna collect artifacts, allies, and spells. Just a great system. The only issue I have with it were the rules. To be fair, I read a pretty outdated rulebook at the time when I just read the rulebook that came inside of the box. But since then, there's been a much more polished rulebook that you can find online. If you do get this game, make sure that you find the latest version of the rulebook online. It was definitely a bit of a tough cookie to crack, figuring out the rules. Once I did, I played it multiple times in a row. I liked it enough that I at the time that I was playing this game, I kickstarted. I got a copy from the Call of Kilforth Kickstarter, which arrived recently, and I made an unboxing. I'll leave you a link to that if you want to watch it. And when I get around to playing it, I'll definitely share my thoughts on it. But yeah, this is a lovely system, and it already has had 3 titles in the series. This, Shadows of Kilforth, and the newest one, Call of Kilforth. And I'm excited to try Call of Kilforth and see how it iterates on this system. But just a fantastic and beautifully illustrated game by Tristan Hall. So yeah, if you want a card-driven adventuring game, Gloom of Kilforth is a great option. Check it out. Alright, so moving on, we have another adventuring game, and we're getting into that territory of games that were pretty tough not to include into my main list. So we start with Dungeon Degenerates, and this is a game that I dismissed for a long time because the art did not appeal to me initially from pictures that I saw of people sharing the way that it looks like, these like psychedelic like neon colors. But as I read more about it, I kind of got over that, and the art kind of grew on me, and I ended up ordering it. And by the way, if you want to see a review of this, I did post a review. It was, in fact, my first review, I think, that I ever posted. So I'll leave you a link to that. Just keep in mind that the audio, I was still figuring out my tech back then, so the audio is not the best. But yeah, I'll leave you a link to that if you want to hear my extended thoughts and how I was organized and stored the game as well. But this is just a fantastic adventuring game, and it has one of the best rule books that I have ever read, considering that Goblinko is a pretty small publisher. They only have a couple of board games to their name. They just blow out of the water rule books made by established publishers, and the adventuring system that they created here is just so rich and detailed. The combat is great, but it's not the main selling point of the game. Combat does create some interesting tactical choices, but One of the biggest strengths of the game is the emerging stories that it creates. The way that the campaigns are short, the campaigns are not super long. The game is set up in a way where you play a string of like 2 or 3 missions in a row, and you find out there's branching paths, and then you find out how you fare in the campaign at the end. You lose, or you might even your party might die in the middle of the campaign. But they're short campaigns, so it's not a huge commitment. And once you internalize the rules, you might play a campaign over a weekend. It's just such a great D&D type board game, D&D type game in board game form. Just fantastic, and lots of replayability from the cards, the different character teams that you can form. So yeah, just a great game. And if the art is not an issue for you, definitely look into this game. One of the best adventuring games out there. Dungeon Degenerates, Hand of Doom. All right, next we have Skytear Horde, and this is a game that it almost made it to my top 20, but not quite. So this is a card battler deck, and what it advertised itself as is it's like a Hearthstone / Magic the Gathering type game in board game form that plays really well solo, and I agree with that. I made a little video where I showed you how I improved the storage and also shared some extended thoughts, so feel free to click on that. But the reason why this didn't rank higher for me is because I really feel that this needs more card variety. I want more deck archetypes. There's a bit of a color system going on here for you to construct decks, but I just want more card variety. So that's one thing. And two, the rulebook I was not a fan of. It was a bit unclear and a bit awkward to learn. The rulebook really lacked clarity. Luckily, the devs are very active on Board Game Geek and on Discord, so they've been answering questions. But I was not a fan of the rulebook, and although when I first opened this, I played it for like 2 weeks straight and immensely enjoyed it, I have not opened it since because I don't want to relearn it. But I'm hoping that with the new crowdfunding campaign that they had, that I happily participated in, I'm waiting for the new expansion content for more card variety and also an improved rulebook. I'm really looking forward to that, and this might be up there with other games in my collection, in my top 20 that you'll see later, that scratch that Magic the Gathering itch. And this really has the mechanics, it really has the potential for that. I just want more card variety and a clear rulebook so that it's easier for me to come back to the game after, if I pause for a few weeks and I want to come back to it, it's easy to pick up and play. The rulebook as it was at the moment, it didn't feel like that to me. I just want the rules to be a bit more clear, and this could easily be on my regular rotation of games. Excited for that new content. So Skytear Horde, maybe next year it'll be on my top 20. Next we have Folklore the Affliction, and this was pretty tough to not include on my main list. However, I have another adventuring game that trumps this one, but this was really close. This is one of those board gamifications of D&D that happens to be soloable. You do have to control multiple characters for this to work. It doesn't work very well at low character counts, keep that in mind. If you want to hear extended thoughts on this game, I'm gonna leave a link for you to watch that, where I talk more about it and things you might like or not like. But to me, this was a game that I played for the first time this year, and it surprised me. It was just such a pleasant surprise. I adore this game. It does such a good job of giving me a D&D-esque experience as a solo player. And there's lots of expansions out there. Unfortunately, it seems like the publisher is having some issues and they might fold. So this game doesn't seem to have much of a future. There's been an update since about that, but it looks like this game doesn't seem to have much of a future unless the publisher turns around or if this gets picked up by another publisher. I do wish this got even more content. I love it. Gothic theme is awesome. It just plays so well. Just amazing board gamification of a D&D game. So Folklore the Affliction, awesome adventuring game. Check out the extended thoughts if you want to learn more about what I think. And yeah, unfortunately I wasn't able to fit it on my main list, but really close. Alright, next we have Scythe. This is a game that was on my main top 20 list last year. This year it didn't make it just because I prioritized a couple more games, but it definitely was one of those that I was trying to squeeze in there, but I just couldn't ultimately. But this is just such a fantastic experience, such a good automa. And with the expansions, the content and replayability is just off the charts. And this game has just such depth. Like the ceiling for you to get good at this game, I love that. You can just get better at the game either just by virtue of playing it or by reading strategies online. There's like a competitive scene for this game even. So this is just such a fantastic system, and there's so many things that it has. It has area control, it has engine building, it has, although very light and typically not something you want to do, combat, but it does have that. So it's like a pseudo 4X experience, and the automa is just so well made. There's even an app if you want to reduce upkeep. There's an app that you can download that lets you, it tells you exactly what to do on the automa's turn. So that you don't have to have the physical decks, and you can have multiple automa going up against you. And there's even a campaign expansion. I have not tried that yet, but this is one of the best solo board gaming experiences I have ever had. If I cut down my collection to a few dozen games, this 100% would be in that lot. This is just such an amazing solo experience. Scythe, and really I think that the consistent high ranking that this gets on the People's Choice top 200 solo games every year, I think is 100% warranted. It's just such a great title. Love the art too, by the way. Gosh, the art is just gorgeous. So yeah, Scythe, amazing solo experience. Alright, and finally we arrive at Spirit Island, one of the toughest games that I had to leave out of my top 20 list. This was on my top 10, in fact, last year. And well, the reason why it bounced so hard from the list this year is because I just don't reach for this game that often. The year where I included it on my top 20, it was the first year where I played it. So I was enamored by it initially, but after time passed, I realized that I don't reach for this game that often. But I do like having it and playing it occasionally. It's great. I'm just not in love with it the same way that I'm with other games that you'll see on my top 20 later. But if you're interested in this hobby and you have not tried Spirit Island, make sure you do it, and you might fall in love with it. Like a lot of people have. And all the accolades that this game has, 100% warranted. It's just such a genius design, and I love the modularity that it offers to adjust difficulty. It'll cater difficulty so that even to beginner level to the most insanely complex and difficult scenarios. It's crazy how it does that. It really will test you if you want to ratchet up the difficulty. And there's many expansions. I have not touched the expansions yet. I've only played this base game and Horizons. I do have Branch and Claw, not tried it yet. Some people say that it makes the game more complete. Maybe I should throw it in there and see if it'll make this go up, and maybe it'll come back to my top 20 next year. I had Jagged Earth at some point, but I knew that I wasn't gonna go to that level of complexity with this game when I've barely scratched the surface, so I traded it away. For now, I'm pretty content with Horizons of Spirit Island, which I made a little review of that, by the way. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link. Which a lovely little experience. Horizons of Spirit Island adds more content as well. But they're a great system, and I do enjoy it occasionally. I just don't love it the same way a lot of my titles in the top 20. The same way I love some of those titles in the top 20. Maybe in the future it'll come back to my top 20. But yeah, Spirit Island, amazing title. Make sure you check it out. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed that. Make sure to tune in next time when I upload my top 20 games of 2023 video. And if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one.